The global seas are gearing up for war. Tensions are simmering and conflicts are heating up. A surefire pressure cooker situation that is about to explode. In this video, I will spell out some of the most dangerous conflicts in the world, starting from the Red Sea, where the Houthis are trying to deal a death blow to global shipping, to the cunning sabotage in the Baltic Sea. You also don't want to miss out on China's dodgy moves in the South China Sea. Let's begin. The Red Sea is a dangerous battleground. The U.S. coalition is battling Houthi militias. On November 19, 2023, Houthi rebels launched their first attack, the hijacking of a commercial ship. This was followed by 24 other attacks, blitzing shipping vessels with missiles and drones. The Houthis, chugging their speedboats, have put the global shipping trade at a huge risk, so much so that the Suez Canal has come to a standstill. There's been a catastrophic 90% reduction in container activity. Big names in the shipping industry have ditched the Red Sea route, opting for a longer Southern Africa route. To realize the magnitude of the problem, consider this: 15% of global trade passes through the Red Sea. But who are the Houthi rebels and what do they want? The Iran-backed rebels rule over Sana'a and northwest Yemen. They have one enemy in this war: Israel. But that's not all. They also proclaim that they are part of the Iran-led axis of resistance. Their aim? Opposition to the war in Gaza by attacking Israeli vessels or those headed for the Israeli port. The Houthis were warned on January 3, 2024 against launching further attacks, but there was no stopping the Houthis. They carried on launching munition attacks, raining down drones and missiles on vessels. The U.S. Central Command issued yet another warning on January 9. Now an international coalition led by the U.S. is on a warpath to liquidate the Houthis' capability to threaten global shipping routes. On January 11, the U.S., with the support of its international partners, targeted Houthi launch platforms, along with their ballistic and cruise missiles, drone storage, as well as production facilities. Another U.S. strike followed on January 22nd. Now, it seems like the Houthis did not do their homework. What am I talking about? According to the Atlantic Council, the Houthis thought that they would only anger the U.S. if they directly targeted one of its citizens. Big mistake. Here's the second miscalculation made by the Houthis. They brushed off the possibility that Joe Biden would launch a military offensive in the election season. Clearly a bad idea. But wait, there's more. The third catastrophic miscalculation was that the most the U.S. would resort to were countermeasures, and that too if they decimated a U.S. asset. Again, completely unfounded, as recent events have shown. Iran continues to be the bane of U.S. policymakers in the region as it pushes its weight behind terrorist outfits, along with its interference in the Persian Gulf and other waterways. It did not help matters that U.S. forces had to stop the supply of Iranian weapons to the Houthis on board a ship near Somalia on January 11th. The conflict in the Red Sea is raging, but there's another sea where things have reached the boiling point. On September 26, 2022, a series of blasts rocked the waters off the Danish Island of Bornholm. The blasts were picked up by Swedish seismologists. As plumes of methane polluted the atmosphere, it was discovered that the destruction was severe. 3 of the 4 Nord Stream gas pipelines were damaged. Here's the devastating fact: no one knows who is behind the blasts. To give you some background, the Nord Stream gas pipelines lie under the chilly waters of the Baltic Sea, connecting Russia and Germany. The multi-billion-dollar pipelines were a project of Russia's Gazprom, which said that the blast resulted in the leakage of 800 million cubic meters of gas. That's a 3-month Danish gas supply. The idea behind the pipeline was to export Russian gas to Europe without involving Ukraine, which was involved in 95% of Russian gas exports previously. The move would have propped up Moscow politically as well. But who is behind the crime? The U.S. and NATO pinned the act down as sabotage. The Russians, not so much. Moscow declared it as an act of international terrorism. Both gave each other the side eye. There are contradictory views on who the real culprits are. One thing is for sure, Sweden has established that it was a deliberate act given the objects recovered from the scene of the crime carried trace elements of explosives. Things have reached a fever pitch in this energy dispute since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Europe has since then moved on to other energy suppliers. The incident has given rise to fears about how easy it is to commit this kind of sinister act. Another conflict hotspot in the current Ukraine conflict is the Black Sea, which shares a border with not just Ukraine and Russia, but 3 NATO countries. On to Asian waters now. China is like a dragon guarding the treasures of the waterway between the Strait of Malacca and the Pacific. The waterway is not only loaded with resources, but also holds key strategic importance. It's no surprise that China is establishing its dominance in the South China Sea, which also boasts claims from countries such as Malaysia, the Philippines, Brunei, Taiwan, and Vietnam. The US-Indo-Pacific commander, John C. Aquilino, has pointed out that China has accumulated the largest military buildup in the region since World War II. I'm talking about the disputed Paracel Archipelago and Spratly Islands in the South China Sea, where China has carried out a spate of land reclamation projects. Let's talk about the island of Triton first. It has 2 other claimants, Vietnam and Taiwan. Now, according to satellite images, China's construction portfolio reads something like this. It is building an airstrip on the island, a very reckless move. The airstrip measures over 600 meters. That's enough to facilitate turboprop aircraft as well as drones. A Chinese helipad and buildings boasting radars already exist on the island. According to Aquino, 3 of the Spratly Islands constructed by China have been militarized. Let me tell you, China's expansionist aims in South China are a major danger flag to Taiwan. Beijing views Taiwan as its sovereign territory, and the possibility of a cross-water conflict in the Strait of Taiwan is very real. But Beijing is strategic. The biggest weapon that Beijing has in its arsenal is the use of gray zone activities. It utilizes this tactic to pile on the pressure on Taiwan, as can be seen in Taiping Island. An example of gray zone activities is crewed air patrols. Here's the wild part. While Beijing is careful not to cross the threshold into a direct military conflict, it leaves no stone unturned in coercing Taiwan through non-peaceful harassment strategies to achieve its political and strategic aims. If China succeeds in its aims for uniting with Taiwan, it will impact the U.S. position in East Asia. It will also have a strategic advantage by intersecting Japan's transport lines. Now, the U.S. has its own strategy in place. Interestingly, in the first event of its kind, the U.S. first warship, the destroyer U.S. John Finn, crossed the waters of the Taiwan Strait. The move has angered China, who brought the hammer down on the U.S., calling it a trouble-causing and provocative step. Given its expansionist aims, this one should not come as a shocker. China is amping up its naval capabilities. The Chinese are expected to pump up the number of their warships to 555 in the upcoming 5 to 6 years, according to current projections. As of right now, Pentagon military experts estimate China's arsenal of missiles to be around 1,500 with a 1,000 to 5,500 kilometer range. New players such as India are also flexing their naval might to rival China's presence in the Indian Ocean. It's expected to have 175 warships by the year 2035. In order to counter Chinese influence, the U.S. is planning to build their first big weapons base in the Indo-Pacific. This is something that they haven't done since the Cold War. However, the U.S. is navigating sticky waters. The U.S. shipbuilding plans do not foresee any significant naval growth in the current decade. Its current fleet consists of 291 warships. This figure will remain unchanged in 2028. The last 20 years have seen the U.S. fleet remain under 300. The U.S. strategy needs rehauling if it wants to impact Chinese influence in the Western Pacific. The year 2024 will not be a mixed bag. Unfortunately, instability and turmoil are written all over the cards. 2024 will keep global policymakers very busy as geopolitical risks are expected to climb. The Middle East crisis, along with a war in the Taiwan Strait, are expected to stay in the news for all the wrong reasons. They might even mushroom, sprouting new crisis. Iran's threat will not be erased anytime soon. If anything, it is expected to fan the fire of the current conflict by funding Lebanon's Hezbollah. And if Iran advances its nuclear program, it could throw the region into more chaos. So which of these conflicts do you think will get resolved in your lifetime? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.